And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Wednesday webinar, this final Wednesday webinar for the summer season, at least here in the northern hemisphere. My name is Tim Brzezinski. I'm the Professional Development Director at Geogebra, and I'm excited to bring to you creating Geogebra animations, slider animations, part 2 tonight. We're going to continue where we left off 2 weeks ago, where we started part 1. Yeah, so we're going to take a couple months off from webinars and we'll resume back sometime, probably middle to late September. But again, I want to just welcome you again. If you are totally brand new to GeoGebra, like literally brand new, this is your first time watching, I'm not kicking you out. I'm just saying that this might not be the best webinar for you to watch. If you go to GeoGebra's YouTube channel, there's a lot of introductory ones for brand new beginners. I encourage you to watch one of those, but you're more than welcome to stay. I'm not kicking you out, you know. Yeah, so we're just gonna get started here to see how we can create some of our own animations in GeoGebra. Share my screen and we will rock and roll. So if you check out the YouTube live chat there, scroll up a little bit, okay? You will find in the GeoGebra YouTube link, I put two resources. Right after Ed's comment. Ed's comment is between my two comments there. But what I'd like you to do, please, is to go to the class. It's the second link the last link that the GeoGebra posted there. If you can go to that class, please, and just go ahead and sign in there. I would love to have you interact with some of these apps and play, just to see what you can make of it. Okay, so we have tasks here, right? Remember a GeoGebra Classroom. You could take any GeoGebra activity and transform it into a GeoGebra and turn it into a GeoGebra class where you can watch student work live right here. So you can see who's here and what's going on. You could also ask questions and see responses to questions. They come in real time. Okay, so if you want more information on GeoGebra Classroom, look on GeoGebra's YouTube channel. We did a 1-hour webinar last month about that. We had a lot of fun with it too. Really cool. So anyway, taking a look here, I'm going to take a peek at the original activity that we have. That's actually the first link that was there. But you see kind of what I see right here, right? So if you look at the first one, you interact with the app, and feel free to type your responses in the chat, even though there is a 10-second lag in between us. Like what I'm saying live, you hear 10 seconds later. But what do you notice here? Or actually, if you could put the responses in the class here, the task, this is called task 2 for you, right? I mean, you can move these blue points or black points, doesn't matter. Move anything wherever you want at any time. And you slide the slider, right? Tell me what you notice here. What do you see going on? Okay, we're going to take a peek behind the scenes here to see how we can perhaps make something like this, you know? I move the slider. It looks like B goes from min of 0, and it looks like it has a max of 2. But what's going on? You see, every slider tells a story, right? Whenever I create one of these things for my students, and I have to make this disclaimer. As a teacher, I would never, ever recommend starting with something like this, okay? If you want students to discover that in the same circle, right, 2 inscribed angles that intercept the same arc are congruent, this is not the way I would have students initially discover that. No, I would have them go to GeoGebra's geometry app and just build it from scratch and then measure, and then, oh my gosh. And then we start to wonder, why does that angle measure never change, right? And of course, we also know it's half of the measure of the central angle that, intercepts the same arc, right? So this is actually, I think, a corollary from that bigger theorem right there, right? Because each of these blue angles is half that central angle that we could draw from the center here, right? So how do we actually kind of make something like this? What's the logic? Well, let me go back to the class and see some of your responses, because I want to know. We have a few people in here, but let's go to task 2. Yeah, the inscribed angles are congruent. Yep, translate the arc of circumference. But when it comes to programming, though, what happens, like, say, as B goes from 0 to 1 or 0 to 2? Could you tell me, can you actually sort of tell me the story? If I could look at maybe someone's work here. I think Megan's here, but as I just kind of, go through, right? Again, let's look at details. Why does B stop at 2? you know, and what happens halfway? When b is 1, what just happened at 1, right? Or from 0 to 1, right? What's going on? Again, b is 1 now. What's going on from 1 to 2, right? Yes, I see a YouTube comment there. Yes, as when b goes from 0 to 1, we are translating, right? And no matter where these points lie, look at this. I mean, I can move it here and over here. When b goes 0 to 1, I'm translating that sector. And then when b goes from 1 to 2, I'm doing a rotation around that point, right? So every slider tells a story, right? And the way that I do it, again, not the only way. The start and stop for slider ends doesn't matter. I like to use just like integer values. So when the slider goes 0 to 1, this happens. When it goes 1 to 2, this happens. 2 to 3, etc., etc. Okay. So let's go back and take a peek here and see some more responses there. You kind of see what's going on. But now let's take a look. Let's take a look at 3. All right, take a look at task 3 there, if you will, and let's mess around there and see what we can do. You see a little bit of more information here, right? Obviously, we see a translation by a vector, don't we? And then we see a rotate around the point. But again, I want you to pay attention to something even bigger, right? Pay attention to labels. Okay, we have point E, right? We have point F, and we have sector Q, the circular sector here. But when I translate, what happens to Q? Q becomes, the name of Q changes to Q prime, which, as GeoGebra interprets that, that's a whole different sector, right? Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense because Q prime is the image of Q, which was here, right? Right here in the left where E was. Q is still here, but Q prime is now the image of Q under that translation by vector U, which somehow takes this E prime, magically goes from E to F when B goes from 0 all the way to 1, right? And then from 1 to 2, again, check out the name here, right? We have Q right there, but then Q prime right there. But then as I go beyond 1, Q prime, the name changes now to Q double prime, right? So we literally have 3 different sectors at work, if you will. Okay, right there. Again, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the YouTube chat, because I have my phone right by my computer and I'm just kind of glancing at the comments every minute or so. So feel free to chime in there, wherever. That'd be awesome. Okay. So now let's go back. All right, because we see people, we're playing around here, but then, yeah, exactly. Very good, Meg. We hit it using conditionals. All right, we'll talk about that, Scott. How to input mathematically? Absolutely. Satvinder, absolutely, yes. Yep. My Spanish is not up to par. I apologize, IPB, but looks like it. Yes, and then comments, angles. Okay, so let's take a peek now at task 5. We could do more too. What's the difference between this and this? Like, I want you to compare and contrast here. Look at this animation now. With this animation, how does this animation differ from the ones that you just saw up above? Compare and contrast this one with this one here. Feel free to type it in YouTube as well, too, or you could type in the response in the thing there. But what makes this one different than the one you saw in task 1 and 3? Or maybe we answered over here. No, I like the way you phrased it, Megan. The sector rotates as it translates. Exactly. In GeoGebra, you can do 2 transformations simultaneously, right? You totally can do that. Like in the first couple ones, we actually literally broke it up, right? But in the third app that you saw there, we literally give me a second, let me go back to the original. Let me just view the original right here. Right? In the third one here, see, we broke it up. B goes 0 to 1, we translate. B goes 1 to 2, we rotate, right? Yes, it's like in the third one, it's rotating as it translates, right? And that's the cool part. You could take E, watch this. You could take E, move this back here, right? And let's see what happens again. Let's switch them up a little bit, and let's make these like bigger than 180. Let's make these, or close to it, right? not bigger than 180, but let's just make it looks like a right angle. It's almost a semicircle it's intercepting, right? But check it out. Here, whoa, it's almost like doing a full 360 almost, not quite. But how do we determine the angle? No matter where F is, right? It just knows. How does it just know to nestle right in there? Again, it's actually not as difficult as it seems. I'm going to show you how we can make something like that tonight. And learning a principle. This is just general principles that I use when I create a lot of the animations that I create. Again, never for the purposes of initial discovery. I want to make that very clear. Something like this, I believe, pedagogically speaking, should never ever be used as an introduction to have students discover a concept, because technically sliding a slider and watching something still is passive learning, in my opinion, right? I would rather have kids build from scratch. I mean, I used to take the same construction on paper years ago. I would have my geometry students just, plot 2 points on the circle, plot a bunch of dots on the arc up above, and make a bazillion inscribed angles and cut one of them out and notice, oh my gosh, it fits perfectly in all the others. Why does that happen? We do the initial discovery first, whether it's using paper or using tech, but then afterwards, we prove the why and then work with that. But something like this, I find something like this has a purpose of maybe the day before a test, and you want to take 20 minutes to review some concepts with the students, and you say, hey, name that theorem. What's dynamically being illustrated here? Or maybe a student comes after school for extra help and you have it, and then they see their construction, they're still struggling, and they say, okay, well, I need an intervention more. This could be something that's more of an intervention to make it very visual, if you will. Okay. So again, I want to make that clear. I never believe in using something like this for initial discovery at all. But anyway, yeah. So let's talk about learning how to make this. And again, we don't have to stop. We don't have to stop right there. Even we can, go here. We can have 2 inscribed angles there. And again, I tried to make that slider animated slowly, right? So when B goes 0 to 1, I have some empty space there. As B goes 0 to 1, goes from one to the other. And then when B goes 2 to 3, it's moving back. It's moving to the second angle, and then vice versa, right? But regardless, no matter where you put this, it'll always work. So let's build this now. Let's see how we can actually do that. We're going to use a principle that we kind of used we talked about last week. And to do that, I'm going to actually open up Geogebra Classic 5, the software version on my computer here. You can easily build this in Classic 6, Geogebra Classic on line 2. But again, if you have a computer, you can download Geogebra Classic 5. It's the only software version of Geogebra, that is, and it's very powerful, okay? And you can easily go to File, Export, and just basically export it as an activity. You're locked in Geogebra. It'll become an activity page that you can edit and modify further from there, okay? Yeah, so let's actually, I'm going to take my class. I'm actually going to full screen this now. All right. And I'm going to go to graphics. I'm going to turn off the grid. I'm going to turn off the axes there. And I'm going to, for the magnet, I'm going to put on automatic so I could just plot points anywhere, right? Again, the goal is to build this animation, So right here, let's make a circle. Obviously, we need a circle to start, don't we? We have a circle with center A that passes through B, and the name of that circle, that conic, GeoGebra calls little c. You'll notice that when you build in GeoGebra, and I know you know this, but that every single time you make an object, it names it. That's what GeoGebra does. That's just its nature. It has to. Okay. And so now, think about what we saw before. Right. Let me go back to Chrome here. We have the intercepted arc. So I need to have 2 points on that circle, like this point right here and that point there, to make that intercepted arc. So again, I'm going to let B be only the radius changer, right? B is a radius changer. That's like, see how this is like my B right here. This is like my A center. That's my B. But I have 2 points that lie on that circle. I don't want these points to change the radius, if you will. So I will go ahead and use the point on object tool right there. Under the point, a point or point on object, doesn't matter. I'll put a point here, and I'll put a point here. CD, all right? I'll turn that tool off. And actually, anytime I like the points are draggable for students, I like to make them really big. Big points, again, it's a convention that I use, that draggable points are pretty huge, and points that are not draggable tend to be small on that circle. B changes the radius, or I can move it around, whatever. Okay, but only B is the radius changer. Now, I want you to know something else here. I'm not sure, some of you might not have caught this here. Notice how right here, go back to Chrome, right? Notice how this pink point here, in fact, let's go up to the first one here we did. This blue point, see how this blue, try moving that blue point on the black arc, on the dark arc, the darker black arc. You cannot do that. This point is now stuck only on the lighter arc right there. See what I mean? Same with this blue point. So it's almost like I fixed them on there. Wow, and why does the sector get bigger and smaller? It just seems kind of weird, right? Again, there's a reason for that too. I'll tell you why in a couple minutes. But here, these points are glued to that major arc that's up above, right? The intercepted arc is a darker arc that's down below. So I'm gonna actually take this circle and I'm gonna choose to hide it. Okay, so I'm gonna hide that conic there, and I'm gonna go to my circular arc tool now. Circular arc, right? The way that tool works is you select the center of the arc, which in our case is gonna be A, okay? And then the 2 points, in this case, it'll be C and D. So center arc, so A, then C, then D. That's gonna be the arc that serves as our intercepted arc. But now I also wanna have a major arc that, I also wanna have, yes, absolutely, the comment that just came in, yes, create an arc and then put the new lines only on the new point, you mean, yes. So I'll make another one, A, then D, and then CC, right there. And then I'll turn the tool off by hitting the move arrow. So right now, right, E is that arc up above here, which I'm gonna take and I'm gonna make a little bit lighter, right? I'll make it really light. And I'm gonna take D and I'm gonna make that really, really dark as it possibly can get. You see what I mean? And so here now I'm gonna put 2 points, point on object. I'm gonna make the points large there. For point, I'm gonna actually put a point on that E arc and on this over here. So E and F are now locked on, are locked on that major arc E right there. Okay. Good evening. Good evening, sir. How are you? From Brazil. Thank you for joining. So right here, okay, I'm gonna make those bigger again. Okay, just like that. And now, so again, I can have my inscribed angles coming off of E and F. And so I'm gonna use my segment tool here. I'm gonna actually make them a little bit lighter here, something like that. And go EC, ED, FC, and FD, right there. Okay. Again, feel free to throw questions in the chat. Okay. And so right here, now we need to make the sectors that originate, that have centers E and F, right? But now again, the problem, but I also make the radius of that sector variable, because the thing is, notice how we have 4 segments. We have F and G and H. H almost looks like a diameter, but it's not. And we have I, right? So basically, I want the circle that what I'm actually going to end up doing is putting 2 circles here, because the circles actually need to start at E and F, and then where the circles cross the 2 segments, those intersection points are going to be the endpoints of those sectors that are colored blue or pink in that animation you saw, right? So what we're going to do here is what I often will do here to make my life easier is I'll actually go ahead and actually let me put the input bar up top so you can see it better. View layout for the toolbar we'll put up top. No, I'm sorry, the input bar show up top, so it's now up there. There we go. That's better. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a set of points. I'm going to say it a set of points here. Remember the funky looking brace symbol there, that symbol, F G H I. Okay. And what I want to know is I want to know the minimum value of that set. Okay. The min command returns the minimum value of a list of elements, the list using by the brace symbol there. So I want to do that. So the GeoGebra called that A, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a circle with center and radius right here. center and radius, and I'll center it at E. And now I'm going to make the radius, say 35% of A, right? Remember, A is the minimum value of segment lengths F, G, H, and I, right? So if I make a circle here, center at E, that's 35% of the radius of that. I get that. Now that's kind of big. I think that's kind of too big for the sector. Maybe I should make it here. All right. Let me actually double click on that. Let's make it maybe a quarter of it, 25%. Right? That's better. I think that's a good size. But see, it doesn't get too big or too small, right? As it gets closer, see how it gets closer to here? You see how the sector is getting see how that it's getting really small right here? Reason why is because G is really tiny. And so 25% of G is the minimum value that's set, right? And so I want that, if I had a sector that was huge, it would be going over D and people wouldn't be seeing anything. That's why I choose to make the radius of that circle variable, right? So now I go ahead and put my intersection points here and here, and I'm going to go hide that conic, whatever it was called, K, right there. All right. Okay. So now, good evening, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for the comments. Love the enthusiasm. Yeah. So now let's make the sector, shall we? Let's go here, and oh, there it is, circular sector. Shades it in. We're gonna shade it in now. That's gonna be our angle, if you will, right? And so now again, E, G, H. All right. Again, I'll turn it off, turn the tool off, and now I'm actually gonna we can make the color, pink bold here. But let me go back and right click object properties for that sector there. Let's see. We had a blue color before. Let's stick to the same thing we saw before. That was a color we had, right? I think so. And for style, for sectors, again, I can make them really thick. It's kind of too thick to me. I like to have thickness of 0, so we could see the rays, the segments there, right? If you will. Yeah. So again, that sector right there is going to represent our inscribed angle. Okay. And notice, see how the sector gets smaller as E gets closer to D, that segment G approaches 0. And that's like, well, that's why I wouldn't be able to see it if that sector was huge, right? That's why I do it. So now, again, I can make a minor arc here. I can make it even really major arc. See how that angles, those inscribed angles are getting closer to 180 now, right? But there we go. Now comes the fun part. Okay, the setup is important. The animation to me is the fun part. I like that. That's my favorite part. So now we need to tell the story, right? And remember the story we saw before. Okay, so right here, right, we have remember when so we need a slider. When the slider goes from say 0 to 1, we're gonna make the sector translate, and then 1 to 2. We're going to make the sector rotate, just so we kind of know what's going on here, right? Just these are notes to the side that we can keep to ourselves there. All right, so there you go. So now let's actually you know what the cool part about Classic 5 is? That you could take the top here and you could drag it anywhere in the construction you want. You can't do that online, but you can do that in the software in version 5. So if you actually have like graphics 1 and graphics 2 to the right of it and you want to switch them, the trick is you download it to version 5 computer software. You could switch them there, you re-upload it, and then they're switched, if that makes sense. All right. I do stuff like that all the time. But I tend to create high-powered stuff like in Classic 5, but simple animations or constructions I can just do right in GeoGebra Online. I've done complex ones online, like 3D, but again, it doesn't matter the app. The app or software does not matter. But right here, you get what you have. So now let's make a slider. In this case, we're going to call it B. I'll let the min be 0. We'll let the max be 2. Remember we said, I don't think there's anything else to tell in the story. When 0 to 1, we're going to translate, right? And then 1 to 2, we're going to rotate and let it fit in beautifully. So we'll increment it by 1/100th to make it really, really nice right there. And I'll turn that tool off. So there's my slider. All right. Now, if you missed last week's webinar, no, not last week, 2 weeks ago, part one, I showed you how to do this, the animation to make E go to F here. And that's the translation, yes, but the trick is to dilate now. We want to dilate point E about F, okay? But we throw a condition on there. If 0 is less than, what's the slider name? B, less than equal 1. Again, there's a few ways you could write this conditional. I write it the same way every time that when I do this thing here. But if B is between 0 and 1, I want the scale factor to be 1 minus B. And if it's not, I want the scale factor to be 0. And I'm dilating now about F. Okay? I'm actually going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it in a text box so we can analyze it further. And then enter. Okay, now watch. See, this is what this. Now, I'm going to actually, you can't see a definition now, but I'm going to make another text here so you can see it better. That's what we typed. Let me make that bigger. Oop, hang on. Let me make this, oh, there it is. Small, medium. There we go. So look at what's going on here. We're dilating E about F, right? F is the center of dilation right now. E, again, a quick 5-minute review from what we did 2 weeks ago. F is the center of dilation. E is the point we are dilating. So if B is between 0 and 1, I'm making the scale factor 1 minus B. So as B gets bigger and bigger and closer to 1, right? As B gets closer to 1, 1 minus B gets closer to 0. So the scale factor is getting closer and closer and closer to 0 as B approaches 1, right? And what happens as the scale factor approaches 0 in a dilation? Well, it means what? That the image is approaching the center of dilation. And that's what I have going on right here. And then if this is false, right? If this is true, I want the scale factor to be 1 minus B, which means it's approaching as B gets closer to 1. But if it's false, I want the scale factor to be 0, meaning I want E prime to lie smack dab right on F, right on top. Right? And so that's what I have here. And so when E is 0, right? See how E prime is right there? Because it says greater than, not, it says less than, not less than or equal to. So right now, B is 0. This condition's false, which means it's going to do the else. The scale factor is 0, meaning that E prime now is at the center of dilation, which we're calling F, right? But as B gets bigger, as B now, as this is true, this condition, that we have to follow this one, the 1 minus B, which means it's getting closer. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we use. We'll make a vector here, E prime. And now we can translate, see translate by vector, right here. Select sector P, select vector U, and turn off that tool. Okay. And so look at that. That's what E prime is. I'll even leave that up there for you. Okay. So you can see it better. Okay. And now you all know how to translate by a vector, and that's kind of what we do. So see how it stayed there? That's what we did. But now we have to see how I called it P prime here? Called it P prime. But now we have to rotate P prime, don't we? I mean, now we have to figure out, gosh, what the heck? What angle do I rotate P prime by so that it's snug, so it fits perfectly right in there? Well, let's think about it for a second. Let's go back and feel free to throw in the chat is what you think I might, the YouTube chat. I can't see the Geogebra class chat, but I have the phone right here. But how do we determine the angle at which we need to rotate P prime to get it to fit in this space right here, the other inscribed angle space? How do we figure out what that angle measure is? Regardless of where that point F lies. Any ideas? I know there's that 10-second lag. It's kind of that's empty space there. No talking, but again, remember, how about this? It's almost like, let me give you a hint. Let's actually, I didn't do this in the animation. Let's actually translate f by that vector u, and let's translate g by that vector u. Aha. Let's see. Let me go. Let's go here. Now, check this out. Now we're translating everything, right? So, Tall Jerome says the angle between segments F and G. Well, yes, that's true. But isn't that actually this angle right here? Right, Jerome, that's the angle like CE prime 2D. That's this angle. This angle I'm circling right here. But we have this little extra change right here. See that little space right there? How do we account for that? And oh my God! And now it's like I have to rotate P prime almost a certain number of degrees. And oh my gosh, I think I just found it, didn't I? Isn't it that angle right there? Right? Or here or here. But if I rotate P, think about it. If I rotate P prime just by whatever the heck this angle is, let's measure it. That angle there is, hang on, I need to put, let me go back here for a second. Well, shoot, that's kind of, well, I'll keep it at E prime 2. Yes, you got it. Yep, F and H, yes. I keep it right there. But the other thing, another way that I can go about it, let me actually undo a couple things. I find it easier because there's a lot of clutter right there. What I find it easier for myself to do is to literally actually construct a parallel line. Use the parallel tool. Let's make a parallel line. Let's take this one right here and let's put it right to E. Let's think simple, right? If I could figure out the number of degrees I got to rotate P by in order to make sure the left side of the blue is on that line right there, isn't that really the same angle that I have to rotate this by? You know what I mean? To get the left side of that blue onto H, right? Is really what I need. So therefore now it's almost like I'm thinking, well, I just need to measure, if I measure this angle right here, CE, and then I need another point on that object. Let me just put a point. I'll just put one way off in left field, I, right? Now I go back and measure IEC, see 49, in this case it's 49, but see now here, that angle is changing, right? And so as I move this closer here, right? If I rotate this P, if I rotate that P sector clockwise by alpha degrees, then it's going to make this guy go nestle right next to H, which is what we want. Okay, so here's how we type it in, still with the same conditional, and I'll put this out here for you to see. But now what we're going to do, remember, B prime tells a story. B goes from 0. Again, B equals 0. E prime is at the center of dilation. We can hide it after. I'll show you how. We did it last time, but we'll do it again. Again, 0 to 1. It does this. Now from 1 to 2, we need to rotate. So you know what we tell GeoGebra? Just rotate. Rotate. What's the object's name we got? Oh, we got to rotate P prime. P prime, angle. Now this is where the condition comes in. If, what? Now we took care of in the first part of the story, 0 less than B less than equal 1. So what's the next part of the story going to be? 1 less than equal 2, right? So 1 less than what? B less than equal 2. If was less than equal 2, let me get rid of that. I'm going to choose to rotate it. Now let's think about this here. P prime has to rotate clockwise, which indicates a negative angle. There's my negative sign right there. Negative alpha, right? But I have to make sure I put a factor of B minus 1 in front of it. B minus 1 alpha, else negative alpha. About, again, I won't put the about yet. I want you to really see this here, because it gets really confusing when you look at it too fast. Well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at these conditions one more time. B now is, the story is now between B being between 1 and 2, greater than 1 but less than or equal to. That means that, you know what, as the slider tells the story even more, I need to make sure I'm rotating alpha degrees. But again, in order for it to be doing that, I need to put a B minus 1 in front of there because I'm between 1 and 2. if I was between 3 and 4, I'd make that b minus 3. If I was between 18 and 19, that would be a b minus 18, if that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we have. Now I wrote, otherwise, it's basically, I want it to rotate negative alpha, period. Again, I'm telling GeoGebra, I want you to rotate that sector negative alpha degrees, which is going to put P prime right where it's supposed to go, right? But only time I have to worry about the rotation angle is if B is between that part of the story is 1 and 2. So if B is between 1 and 2, here's what the scale factor is. If it's beyond 2 or it's less than 1, you just keep it at negative alpha, right? And then I guess that's going to be E prime, or I guess this original point was called F. It's actually covering it right here, and then enter. So let's see. Ooh, yeah. Let's just see this here. So watch this. Put it here. Again, it's come from. So again, focus on, forget everything outside, but P prime is the translation. P double prime is the rotation, right? I'm going to copy P double prime's definition. I'm going to paste it there in the text so you can see it side by side. Okay, let me do that. And this is what P double prime is equal right there. Move this smaller. Yeah, nice. All right, I might have to make this small. I don't want to make it too small, but there we go. That's good, right? So again, and again, P prime was the translation, right? So now we have to worry. Now, this P double prime, we don't want this distracting people, right? So when is this relevant, really? Isn't this relevant after, isn't this really truly important after what, B is equal to 1? So I right click on it, object properties, go to advanced, and when it says condition to show object, again, the thing that's selected here is P, yep, you got it, Scott, B greater than 1. Nice. And enter, and that disappears, right? So it's not going to show up now. And I want this thing to only show up when what? P prime is going to only be visible when what is true? What should I put for P prime? P double prime is B greater than 1. That's the spinning sector, the rotating sector, right? But what about this P prime here? What would be the condition to show this object from the context that we have seen already? B, let's try it, Scott. Scott says B less than equal 1. Some people say between 0 and 1. Let's see what happens. Well, ooh, but when I put, gosh, why does that sector show up there? Oh, wait, yeah, because E prime, right? E prime is what? When B is 0, the scale factor, again, when B is 0, this condition's false, which means I got to go to the else slot. Oh, the scale factor is 0, which means it's smack dab on F. So I think I better hide this now, right? I have to make sure that B is, what if I put B is, someone said B is between 0 and 1. Let's see, B, I think, yeah, someone on YouTube said 0 less than B less than 1. Let's see if this works. Yeah. Oh, didn't it just disappear? Oh, it disappeared at 1. Oh, because right, I put right click on properties. What if it's equal to? There you go. Remember, look how it's defined. Remember, E prime was defined in the way less than equal 1. It's got to follow the same format, less than equal 1. Now look at this. So now I have this, right? Again, I can hide my vector U. I'll just right click show object. I can hide that. Look at that. And I don't need E prime either. I can not show that either. But look at this. Here. Ooh. But see, now you see the labels. When you hide the labels, though, it looks like it's the same sector. And if I look at the original, let's look at the original P. And let's just show it when it's equal to 0. B equal 0. Because at the beginning is really when it's important, isn't it? Because we want to see it, fitting in there. But boom. There you go. And now when I go back and I hide the labels, If I go to P prime, just make it hit the label hidden. Click there. I make the label P double prime. I'll just the AA, make the label hidden. And over here, make the label hidden. And so right now, you can move. And now I like to hide all the other junk. You know, this now it's like cleanup. The hard part's over, but anything else that we don't need in this animation, we could just literally take away. And I could take F, G, H, and I. I'm holding my shift key down, and I can hide those labels at once, if you will. And now you get what I'm saying. Just now it's just pretty much housekeeping from here on out, right? So you kind of get that. And now you can move E and F wherever you want. There you go. Looks like it's what, and look at this. You go beyond here. I don't need I should hide that. Ooh, gosh, why did it do? Remember, we told it to go clockwise. Remember how we defined that? But let's look at the alpha. See how it's 309 degrees? That's that angle there. Now we did it and when it was acute, right? But it works. It totally works, right? Pretty cool. That's how you could actually sort of do something like this. And so now I will let me upload this first so I can keep it there. I will give me a second there. So I'm gonna save as what do I save it as? Webinar 2 construction. Save it, and now I'll go to File, Export. Webinar 2 construction, and then upload. See how it makes it just like that, version 5 to 6. You got it, right? And right here and right now, honestly, all this really, again, what I save here doesn't. This is just a placeholder. It's view only. But if you really want to look at it, you want to open it in the app. So you go here, open an app, and that really is it. Right from that's the link I want to give you right there, and you could play with this totally on your own. Okay. But first, before I do that, I'm just going to go to see how the input bar is up there. Actually, no, I'll leave it just like that. That's fine. So I'll just basically take this and drop it in the YouTube chat now so you can have it and play with it at any time later. Okay. So let me drop it in. There it is. Okay. But before we go, I also want to show you how you can actually very easily, and I think I could ask you, I think I'm comfortable. I think many of you could actually, I know many of you could actually answer this question now, but going back to this one right here. Let's see. Yeah. How do I actually do the animation simultaneously? We're going to take that same construction now. We're going to edit it just slightly, so slightly, so that I want to rotate while we are translating. I think we should be able to do that, right? Notice the slider. Notice that actually makes a slider max go down and cuts it in half. Instead of going 0 to 2, we're now going 0 to 1. See what I mean? Actually, nothing happens beyond 1. It's just extra space, right? Any ideas as to how we could do that? Here? Go back to Geogebra there. There we go. It's actually probably a 2-minute change or less, literally. But I should probably throw labels on. Feel free to throw comments in there. I'm actually going to throw some, I need to throw some labels on some things first. Show label here, show label. P prime. Let's see, P. Yeah, so I want this thing to turn. Let me throw the label here as it's moving. Show label. So P double prime, I need E prime right there. Where'd E prime go? Yeah, put the same conditions on both dilate. Yeah, edit the if statement. Scott says yes. And Satvinder says put some conditions, same conditions on both dilate and rotate. Yes, and by those conditions, I think I would have to modify this, wouldn't I? So, but again, what's P? How is P prime defined? Isn't E prime the key point right here? I could show the vector, right? But look at this. So it's going to have to rotate the same number of degrees no matter what. that angle we called alpha, right? But let me put it in, let me just put it here so it's more acute, easier to see. Like that. So alpha is at 32 degrees in this case. But right here, right, it's got to rotate. Instead of rotating 1 and 2, let's just go back and look at P prime. It's got to rotate, not about F, but about E double prime, right? There's one thing I got to change, but I also have to change the 1 and the 2, right? So yeah, Jerome, you could totally compose it in one. You totally could do that. I tend to work in piecemeal, like step by step kind of thing, but I have seen GeoGebra users like do like basically what it takes me like 5 or 10 lines to code. I would see like one person do it in 2 lines, and there's a sequence and a rotate and a sequence, and my brain can't work that crazily. But if you can do it, I know you can definitely do it that way. But right here, um, let's actually do it right here. So we'll take P prime. Whoops. And let's actually, I'm sorry, P double prime. It's got to rotate about E prime. So let's actually change this definition right here. So it's got to be about E prime now. Oh, I just messed it up. Undo. Hang on. All right. P double prime is what I want. So we click on that. And let's change how it's defined. I need to change it to E prime to be the center of dilation. But at the same time, isn't it 0 to 1? If I want the story to be told 0 to 1, it's got to be between 0 to 1. And this minus 1's got to go. It's just basically negative B alpha about E prime. Now I hit apply. Oh gosh, it's there already. But wait a minute. Where did it go? Oh, it's conditioned to show object. Right. So P double prime is not showing because I said, yeah, see what I said here? What I really want to see is invisible now because B is not greater than 1. But what if I put B greater than 0? Ooh. And what if I took P prime and actually hid it altogether? By going to P prime right there, deleting the conditions to show the object, I can now uncheck show. And look at this. There you go. I translating, rotating at the same time. So right here, this does it in 2. So to do it in 1, make one more text box here. Basically, we need to do the following right here. Copy how this is defined right here. Right there. So that's what P double prime was. There you go. Oh, by the way, one little thing I want it over there. If you right click on it, if it goes in whatever the spot you don't want, you right click object properties. If you go to advanced, you can choose where you want it to appear. Right click on anything, object properties, go to advanced, and under advanced, you could check its location. I don't want it to be in graphics. I want it to be in graphics 2. You click that and it'll also appear there. You could take it out of graphics 1 right there. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of how we could do it that way. All right, like so. And so now you can take it, you upload it, you can do a lot of fun things with that. And now it's just a matter of cleanup, and you have yourself another animations. Scott asks, do you find students are better off seeing each transformation at a time rather than both at once? Probably depends on age. Honestly, Scott, I don't. I think seeing them decompose, like translation then a rotation, I think is better in my opinion because it reinforces the fact that in geometry 2 objects are congruent. If you could literally take one and superimpose it on the other using either one isometry or a composition of 2 or more isometries, right? That's really the definition of congruence in Euclidean geometry. So I would actually venture to say the decomposition one as well. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I like to make notes to myself. Usually I write on paper, but again, every time I make something like this, it always tells a story. And to save time in the webinar, I will actually save this and I will upload it as a brand new one later. Actually, let me do it right now. File, export, activity as web page. I'll do part second construction And I'll actually give you the link to that as well, so you can play with it on your own if you want in the app online. All right, I'll save that. And then I'll give you the link and throw it in the YouTube chat. And end it with a couple comments and a few more questions maybe. Profile. Here, open an app. That's what's really important here. And that's what I'll paste in the YouTube chat now. And if you're watching this afterwards without live chat, because I had to edit it a little bit. When you edit a YouTube video, it takes the live chat away. You can look, it'll be in the description as well. So second instruction. There it is. All right. Yeah. So, but again, I want to make it clear that I'm not advocating these animations to be used for initial student discovery. I think it's also cool for weeks later. Hey, you know, it's almost like name that theorem. What do you know? What do you notice? Can you describe it? Also recall, if you will. It also serves a student who, maybe students, in the U.S. or whatever, and they have an IEP that calls for intense accommodations. You know what I mean? Like accommodations that, that are really, part of the IEP. This also, GeoGebra is an awesome accommodation to help many students who have an individualized education plan, special education. Yeah, so that's how, I create some of those animations. But just going back here, anything is possible. Like if you go back to the original activity here, right? Like you almost might be able to say predict, for example, how many steps it took to make this animation here. Like if you go here, for example, like, gee, again, not an initial discovery, but what is dynamically being illustrated right here. See what I mean? Now, again, modifiable, you can put it wherever you want, right? But again, if you now knowing what you now know, right? I wonder, like, how can you make it? Like, if you were to look behind the scenes here, I'm thinking, well, I always start my sliders at 0, right? So I'm assuming 0 to 1, you stop. So that's 0 to 1 right there. I'll tell you right now, 1 to 2 is this. 2 to 3. The slider's at 3 now. 3 to 4. 4 to 5. 5 to 6, right? But you see, in every part of the story every part tells its own story. And I have to go back, a right-click settings, condition to show object, be greater than 5, right? Otherwise, it'd be showing too early. You know what I mean? So 6 to 7, 7 to 8 makes a segment. 8 to 9, it rotates. 9 to 10. Ooh, from 9 to 10, I'm doing two things. I'm forming the sector, so there's a rotation of a point going on, and there's a dilation of a point from this midpoint to that midpoint, right? But again, and then again, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 13. So if I'm guessing that I used up to 13 steps, like whatever the slider name is, I don't know, from 0 to 13. All right. But again, you're more than welcome to, play with these and just go, like, say, go behind the scenes. Again, you can go get as crazy and creative as you want. Gee, if a triangle is equilateral, it's equiangular, right? But again, I think it's better just to construct an equilateral triangle with a compass and paper, and then you rip off one angle. Oh my gosh, they fit in each other perfectly, right? To me, that's way more intuitive for students. I'd rather them see it and touch it versus like just watch it on a screen, if that makes sense. But again, this was more of like a 30, 60, 90 kind of a demonstration here, right? So with something like that, and gee, the hypotenuse being double the shorter leg. And again, I like to ask students critical thinking questions like, oh gosh, what is the measure of that purple angle? And students always tell me 90, and I say, well, why? Oh, because it makes them think. I think, well, never mind. I'm not expecting them to cite the theorem that, oh, gee, if two lines cross to form two congruent adjacent angles and the lines are perpendicular. Again, there's 1 or 2 students that might be able to spit back that theorem at me, but I'm not looking for students to spit back a theorem. You know what I mean? I'm just actually looking for students to make use of some conceptual common sense. Two congruent angles that form a linear pair, duh, each one's got to be a right angle. You know what I mean? So, hello, Vincent. Hello. You're either up early or you stayed up all night. But yeah. But yeah, so but that's kind of how it is. So, but you can have so much fun with these. And I know Vincent just joined the YouTube chat there. He is the master of creating animated GIFs here. I like to make screencasts, but again, a lot of these animation principles you see at work, you can do using the techniques that you've seen here in this webinar. So yeah. But again, feel free, again, the resource, if you're watching this video afterwards, you can always, you're more than welcome to, access it at any time. It'll be in the YouTube description. And yeah, so this is pretty much what I had. So are there any questions at all? Feel free to type them in the chat. Would love to, we have a few minutes for questions here before we sign off. Gotcha. So slept half the night. It's all good. Great to have you on. We got to have you do a webinar one of these days. So yeah, any questions about any of the animations you saw here, or in the creating of it at least? Okay. You are welcome. Yes. So again, just a couple of just housekeeping items. We will be resuming these webinars most likely middle to the end of September, since a lot of the Northern Hemisphere is still on summer break here. Teachers also taking vacation time, getting ready for the new school year to start. We'll try to pick up. There's some more features coming to Geogebra Classroom, so I'm hoping that the first webinar we do in September will be, demonstrating the new features there that will be coming, and some other exciting stuff that's in the works. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. So again, any questions? You'll always feel free to email me, tim@geogebra.org. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, for participating. We'll see you back here probably in September. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, have a great summer. Southern, hope winter isn't that bad, but we'll see you back here in a couple months. So have a great evening. Have a great morning. We'll catch you later.